In our headlines on this Wednesday afternoon, August 24th, today South Korea and China celebrate 3 decades of diplomatic partnership, with simultaneous events this evening to be attended by top diplomats in their respective countries. And President Yoon Suk-yeol intends to ensure stability within the foreign exchange market, expansion on the export front, and security with regard to the cost of living. Meanwhile, the government and ruling People Power Party place priority on reining in inflation and boosting fiscal soundness as they discuss next year's budget on this Wednesday. South Korea and neighboring China are commemorating 3 decades of diplomatic ties today. To mark the occasion, Seoul and Beijing will simultaneously hold a related event this evening. Now, Foreign Minister Park Jin and his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi will attend the event separately in their respective countries. The top diplomats will also read out letters from Presidents Yoon Suk-yeol and Xi Jinping during the event. Seoul's foreign ministry says it hopes the event will serve as a meaningful opportunity to look back on joint feats and further promote their ties. Up next, we bring you the final installment of the 3-part series on Seoul's ties with Beijing by our foreign ministry correspondents. In this coverage, our Kim Da-mi revisits bilateral trade ties and the related tasks that lie ahead. To take a look.
3 decades of a codependent partnership. The 30-year-old South Korea-China ties have been tight enough to bump up their trade volume by nearly 50 times, making the two inseparable economic partners. Yet, their anniversary comes at a fragile moment. What started as partners has now turned into challengers, with Korea being sandwiched between the US and China over their sharpening strategic competition, especially in Seoul's leading industries like semiconductors and batteries. The latest headache for Beijing is Seoul joining the so-called Chip 4. China sees it yet another Washington's plan to ostracize them from global supply chains. But one expert says that this won't be disastrous for Beijing.
South Korea is one of the countries that's willing to communicate with China. It's necessary for Korea to let China know that Seoul's joining of the alliance can stabilize the global supply chain in the long run.
In fact, another expert says China is well aware of the nature of South Korea's participation, serving its own national interests.
Of course, the Chinese leaders know that South Korea does not have the intent to isolate China. But what they are really looking at is what's happening on the ground and the behaviors of the states involved in the regional dynamics.
That's also in line with Nancy Pelosi's recent visit to Taiwan, setting a new status quo for U.S.-China tensions.
We will not allow China to isolate Taiwan.
Beijing launched the joint military exercises around the island during Pelosi's visit, leading Taiwan facing unprecedented provocations. While pointing out his country supports the One China policy, Seoul's top diplomat Park Jin has made clear that peace in the Taiwan Strait is crucial for regional security and prosperity. This stance is also closely related to issues on the Korean Peninsula, with China remaining critical to Seoul as Beijing has the biggest influence on the regime.
China thinks Korea will become closer to the US in every situation, but at the crux of all these conflicts due to the US or the THAAD deployment is North Korea's nuclear issues.
Experts say it is now time for Seoul and Beijing to shore mature diplomacy with the nature of their issues, meaning the two sides need to re-identify their relationship by discovering and paving new meaningful ways to cooperate for another fruitful 30 years of diplomatic ties. Kim Da-mi, Arirang News.
President Yoon Suk-yeol says the government will thoroughly monitor and seek to maintain stability within financial markets, given concerns over the weakening won against the US dollar. He was speaking at a macroeconomic and financial policy meeting earlier on this Wednesday.
금융외환 시장 안정, 또 수출 확대와 무역 수지 개선, 물가 민생 안정 등 당면 현안과 리스크 대응책을 세밀하게 오늘 챙겨보겠습니다. 국민 여러분들이 안심하실 수 있도록 한순간도 긴장의 끈을 놓지 않겠습니다.
The president called for vigilance as volatility appears rampant in financial and foreign exchange markets amid uncertainties over inflation and monetary tightening in major countries. The government and ruling People Power Party reached an agreement on Wednesday over the framework of next year's budget. The ruling party's chief policymaker said the two sides agreed to ensure the inflation is kept in check and that the nation's fiscal soundness remains strong. The budget will also seek to aid low-income households by expanding energy vouchers while running a debt adjustment program for small businesses and the self-employed. The government and the ruling party also addressed the possibility of earmarking a good portion of the budget to help young and disabled people looking for jobs. And in light of the recent record rainfall, funds will be allocated to design an extensive rainwater tunnel here in Seoul. Meanwhile, South Korea's fertility rate, which refers to the average number of children born to a woman over her lifetime, hit an all-time low in the year 2021. Statistics Korea on this Wednesday revealed last year's fertility rate was 0.81, the lowest since related data was first compiled in 1970. The number of newborns in 2021 dropped some 4% on year to 266,000. Meanwhile, the average age of women giving birth rose to around 33.5 years old, while the number of women giving birth before 35 fell. Statistics Korea links these findings to the rise in average age of couples tying the knot. Also on the local front, South Korea's defense chief has sought to boost morale within members of the South Korean and U.S. armed forces partaking in the Ilchi Freedom Shield. Our defense ministry correspondent Peunji has more.
South Korea's defense minister Lee Jong-seop says that a strong combined defense readiness between South Korea and the U.S. is the foundation of the two countries' alliance. Lee made the remarks on Tuesday while visiting the command post Tango, a military bunker complex for South Korea and U.S. combined forces in the city of Seongnam. He also told South Korean and U.S. service members that they should train side by side and maintain what he called a fight-tonight readiness. He also said the people is the most important factor in winning a war, while referencing a line from the movie Top Gun, "It's not the plane, it's the pilot."
They say the modern war is a high-tech war, but it's people who operate those weapons. It's us.
Near the country's east coast, the South Korean Navy conducted a hazardous leak training exercise as part of the nationwide Ilchi Freedom Shield combined military drills. The training was carried out based on a simulation that a toxic substance was leaked due to a ballistic missile attack. The South Korean Navy First Fleet led the drill, along with the country's marine patrol units and government officials, to improve their readiness in case of an emergency situation. The Ilchi Freedom Shield, a large-scale combined military training operation taking place here in South Korea, will continue until September 1st. It's the first fully-fledged joint drill since 2018, after the two countries canceled some exercises and scaled down others in recent years, both to enhance diplomacy with Pyongyang and because of the pandemic. The South Korean military aims to strengthen its alliance with the U.S., as well as its combined defense readiness to counter threats from North Korea. Peunji, Arirang News.
Nations signed up to the treaty, that is, on the non-proliferation of nuclear weapons plan to urge North Korea to return without delay to the international pact. Now, this is according to Russia's Sputnik News, which said Tuesday that a draft document is circulating among member states outlining the result of the treaty's 10th review conference. The draft reportedly also calls on North Korea to apply International Atomic Energy Agency safeguards to all of its nuclear activities. North Korea joined the NPT in 1985, but withdrew in early 2003. South Korea is said to have played a leading role in crafting the content related to North Korea's nuclear program. And that ends part one of the Daily Report. We'll return with part two in a few minutes. Stay with us.
Share South Korea's experience in tackling COVID-19 and introduce a Korean New Year. A Korean survivor of Japan's wartime slavery met with
extraordinary climate crisis and pledged to work with the EU to tackle the challenge.
The objective of its North Korea policy is
protesters gathering across the country to peacefully demand an end to hate and violence.
Arirang, what matters?
on the grind, on the go. 뜻대로 되지 않아도 마음이 계속 가는 대로 어디까지 갈 수 있을지는 신밖에 몰라. Yeah, 나도 인간이라 의심될 때 있지 아주 가끔. Yeah, 바로메터 다시 잡고 yeah, hustle day and night. 이 사이즈 가끔해도 나는 뒤로 돌아봐. 믿어 끝나기 전에 계속 도전해. Yeah, we on fire. 아직도 눈 눈치만 보고 있어. 아무도 몰라 발 딛기 직전. 왜 아직 기적이라고 믿어. 매 순간에 기회라고 그 네거티비티 당장 뒤집어버려. 6번 넘어져도 칠. 난 못 먹어도 하루 위로 땀이 꺼요. 비가 와도 웃을 수 있게. 뒤에서 말이 꺼도 내 두 발로 딱 설 수 있게 turn. 뒤집어 안 될 거란 생각은 뒤로. 언제나 네 자신을 믿어. 끝나기 전에 계속 도전해. Yeah, we on fire. I feel so good right now. Maybe I had a drink or two, but this somehow feels like it's forever. All my friends are here having fun and feeling good right now. Maybe this is forever. All my friends are here having fun and feeling good right now. Forever.
Welcome back. Today, August 24th, marks the 30th anniversary of diplomatic ties between South Korea and neighboring China. And to mark the occasion, we revisit the phenomenon of Hallyu and its current status. For more on that, I have Professor Kim at Hangang University, who is currently over in Washington, D.C. Professor Kim, it's a pleasure to have you on.
It's good to be here.
I also have Patrick Suen, a culture critic over in Hong Kong, joining us virtually as well. Patrick, it's great to have you with us.
Nice to meet you.
Right, Professor Kim, we'll start with you then. Let's start off with a few words, perhaps, on the beginning of Hallyu, including the origin of the term itself.
Okay, Hallyu, or Korean wave, literally means wave of Korea or flow of Korea. It refers to the increase of popularity of Korean culture since the late 1990s. There are several theories where the actual word Hallyu came from. Some say it started from China, some say it started from Taiwan, and others say the word was first used from Korea. In China, the Korean drama What is Love All About aired in CCTV in 1997, and it reached second highest rating of any foreign dramas. In Taiwan, duo dance group Clone was mega hit by selling over 300,000 albums in 1998. Korean Ministry of Culture and Tourism used the word officially to promote Korean music abroad in 1999. No matter of the region, the word Hallyu has been used around the world for nearly 25 years now.
Right, it really has. And Patrick, how do you explain perhaps the initial popularity of Hallyu over in China?
Yeah, it all goes back to the early 90s. I mean, back in 1993, the Korean TV drama Jealousy was aired in China's national TV station, CCTV, and then it gained huge popularity. But for me, I think the pioneer of the first K-wave would still be An Jae-wook, the singer and also the actor. Because he did a lot of tours in China, did a lot of concerts, and then his CDs were everywhere in China, in different provinces, and also including Hong Kong at that time. And that's how I got in touch with Korean wave too. Because at that time, I always wondered, okay, if I want to listen to K-pop music, so where should I go and what to start with? And then so it's always undate'l, and then HOT, GOD, SES, and then NRG, Izhonghyun. And I would like to mention that in the early year 2000, I mean in the early millennials, there's a Hong Kong singer whose name is Sammy Chang, and she also adapted several songs from Lee Jong-hyun, and then it became big hits in Hong Kong. Yeah, so at that time, this is how Hong Kong people got in touch with the first K-wave, I shall say. And then for the TV drama, it will always be Autumn Fairy Tale, Kao Donghua, starring Song Soon-hwan and Song Hye-kyo. So this is how it started, I think, in Hong Kong and also in China. I mean, to make this K-wave huge.
Right, and staying with that, Professor Kim, what more can you tell us about the popularity of Korean cultural contents in China, that is before the two countries' conflict over thawed?
Yes, after diplomatic ties in August of 1992, the Korean drama Jiltu, Patrick mentioned it as a jealousy, aired in China in 1993. And after that, What Is Love All About reached over 4% rating in China. In 2005, drama Daejanggeum reached 14% rating, which expanded the presence of Hallyu in China. So when I'm talking about drama, some of the dramas such as The Heirs and My Love from the Start not only gained the popularity of drama itself, but also what was shown in the dramas. Chicken and beer became very popular in China, and some of the Chinese visitors, such as 4,500 visitors, came to Han Riverside to have chicken and beer party. Later, over 8,000 came for samgyetang at the same time during year 2016. Chinese government mandated stronger censorship to import contents, and all the foreign dramas had to pass censorship in full series prior to airing the first episode. The Descendant from the Sun was one of the first drama to make entire series for censorship before airing in China. On the other hand, Korean music also gained recognition when Clone and HOT had a concert during 1999 and 2000 in China. If you consider Hallyu Phase 1 during 1997 through early 2000, it was mostly drama music. But during Phase 2, which was during mid-2000, games and films also expanded Hallyu, and Hallyu became diversified to food, fashion, and webtoon during later phases.
Right, I see. Patrick, last year South Korea and China launched the 2001 and 2022 year of cultural exchange. What notable exchanges have there been, perhaps, to mark this campaign?
As far as I know, there are several campaigns and programs celebrating the 30th anniversary of the bilateral ties. For example, there was the ABC Forum, the Sino-Korean ABC Forum, which deals with AI, big data, and culture. And then there was a big book fair showcasing the outstanding works from both countries. And then there's a Sino-Korean concert celebrating the bilateral ties, and also the exhibition and video campaign focusing on the fusion cuisine, drawing inspirations from Chinese and Korean cooking traditions. So I think this is the most attractive part for most people, I guess. Yeah, so you can see, as Professor Kim also addressed that, I mean, all over the world, there are so many Korean restaurants, and people are just fancy and they're crazy about Korean food after watching all those TV dramas, and then they want to eat fried chickens, and then they want to cook Korean dishes at home. Yeah, so I think this is a really interesting campaign too. But of course, I should say, I mean, because of the pandemic, I mean, many of the events and programs, I mean, have been stranded, and then you can see most of the events are put online, or I mean, they cannot participate in person. So I guess this is a pity, and then I hope that after the pandemic, I mean, when the two countries get into resume the normal exchange, I mean, there will be more cultural exchanges and programs of this kind.
Right, I hope so too, of course. Meanwhile, Professor Kim, what has been the impact of Beijing's ban, perhaps, on Hallyu, on South Korea's overall cultural industry starting in the year 2016?
Okay, during 2014, the drama I mentioned earlier, My Love from the Start, was sold for $40,000 per episode, and Moon Lovers was sold for $400,000 per episode, but this export figure of drama became zero. Most Korean games were not permitted to service during this time. Only one in 2000, two in 2021 was allowed, but no other games were permitted. On the other hand, some Korean music were disputed, and groups such as BTS and NCT gained fandom in China. Music was disputing, but the concerts were very limited. This year, in January, dramas Hangang, Memoirs of Color, starring Lee Young-hae and Song Seung-eun, airing Hunan TV and Mango TV in China. Something in the Rain and Quinn and I were serviced in OTT in China including iQIYI and Tencent Video, but no other drama has aired after Bad and Crazy in May. Film Omuni premiered last December after Assassination in 2015, which was like 6 years before, but no other film in China box office opened since then.
Right, I see. Patrick, despite the political differences between the two countries, I believe cultural projects have been ongoing. I'm speaking about the more notable screen production by director Park Chan-wook, Decision to Leave, which stars Chinese actress Tang Wei, one of my favorites, of course. How do such collaborations on the cultural front look to perhaps affect bilateral ties, do you think?
I think this is a really interesting case in point because Tang Wei was a Chinese actress and then she debuted her work by acting in Ang Lee's movie Lust Caution, and then she gained huge popularity in both China and Hong Kong, and also, the Greater China region as well. And then what I found interesting is that, I didn't expect that Tang Wei could be so popular in Korea, because I asked my Korean friends and then the people in Korean film industry, they always say that, okay, we want to make a film with Tang Wei. And then so it is kind of like a dream comes true for her to make a decision to leave. And then I've got a chance to translate the Chinese subtitles for this film, for the Hong Kong film distributor. And then I've got the chance to talk to the scriptwriter, Chong Sao-kyung Takanim. And then she also mentioned that, which is really interesting for me. She mentioned that she's really grateful to director Kim Tae-yong because he married Tang Wei, so that Tang Wei can become part of the Korean film industry. I knew that, there were also Chinese and Korean joint productions before, but they were not that huge and they were not that successful. Yeah, so I think Tang Wei's appearance in Korean films also marked the new era or the new wave of the Chinese-Korean joint productions for the movie industry.
Right. Patrick, staying with the film Decision to Leave. Now, like you mentioned, you partook in the translation work of the film ahead of its screening in Hong Kong. Do tell us a bit more about that particular experience.
Oh, okay. For me, this experience is really interesting and unforgettable because this film, involves the traveling between the two cultures. Because as you know, Tang Wei's character is a Chinese. She is from mainland, and then she kind of like enters Korea, and then she got married to a husband that she doesn't love. And then so they and this is a really literary film. For example, like the films that I translated before, the Korean films, they are always like blockbusters, and then there are a lot of actions, and of course, we have to make sure that the names sound right, and then the jokes. For the jokes, we have to translate them into local cultures. We have to localize them a little bit, maybe. But for this one, I think it is a very literary one. And I also had to spend a lot of time, just like Sole in the film, to study, what she's saying. And then I have to imagine, so if I speak Korean, because of course I'm not a native speaker, so I'm somehow like Sole. I'm somehow like Tang Wei. Yeah, so I have to imagine, so if I were her, so what kind of words I would use? Of course, the scriptwriter had already stated clearly. For example, like the word 마침내. So Soleil's character always said the word 마침내. So for us, non-native, for the non-native speaker, and we are learning Korean. So somehow we also have this kind of questions, like what is the difference between 결국 and 마침내 and 드디어? Yeah, so this is a very eye-opening experience for me, and I've learned a lot too.
Right, the choice of diction, very difficult right there. Professor Kim, 2022, as we mentioned at the start of our program, marks the 30th anniversary of diplomatic ties between South Korea and China. That being said, how can this particular milestone be effectively used, perhaps, to enhance cultural ties between the two countries?
Sure. 30 years of diplomatic ties between the countries are very meaningful, and many people in the industry are hoping that this milestone may ease the regulation and bring out the collaborative mood. But some are still skeptical. But if you consider a film like Parasite winning Oscars, Squid Game becoming most viewed drama in the world in Netflix, while BTS becoming biggest band on earth, it would also interest Chinese audiences. So Korean content may not become as popular as it was during the 2000s, but still there are some possibilities. As Patrick has mentioned, co-production and localization may be one of the solutions for a film like Decision to Leave. One genre of content which was not heavily affected during the time was webtoon and web novel. So webtoon and web novel may be used to create IP in China, and it may be made to dramas, films, and goods later on. It might be worthwhile looking into, but overall, even during 30 years of diplomatic ties between the countries, many people in the industries are still skeptical about the bright near future.
Right. And moving forward, Patrick, what are your thoughts on the weight of soft power in boosting perhaps a country's image? My first image actually of China was crafted largely by Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan. Very positive, of course.
Yes, I mean, but of course, right now, I mean, Korea has done quite a lot on boosting the country's image through soft culture. As Professor Kim has mentioned, I mean, like the idol group BTS, they traveled to the US, they delivered a speech in UN and met President Joe Biden and discussing the issues on racial discriminations. And I think the success, for example, like if you're talking about Netflix, the success of Squid Game also proves that Korea can make something that Hollywood used to be able to do. I mean, it is exclusive to Hollywood before, but right now, I mean, Korea has proven that they can also make it. And after watching this TV drama, of course, I mean, many of us, I mean, even we are not Koreans, I mean, we are attracted to the world of the TV drama, and then we always wanted to visit Korea. I mean, after watching this, and then we want to try a little bit the King Sugar Candy. Yeah, so this is how the soft power speaks about itself. I mean, it enhances tourism, and then it enhances the cultural exchanges. Yeah, so that's why I think this wave of soft power will grow even stronger and stronger.
Right. And Professor Kim, beyond this particular region then, as you mentioned, Korea's cultural contents are enjoying phenomenal success in many parts of the globe. What can be done to maintain this particular momentum?
Yes, I mean, recent drama Extraordinary Attorney Woo also gained popularity around the world through Netflix. And last weekend, the KCON actually had the concert into LA, since the pandemic. So last time it was K-Contact, it was done online before. And last year, Mountain Jiri was aired in Chinese OTT IGE, but it did not gain a huge success, but I believe it was a meaningful try. So I believe Korean content creators should continue to work with global OTT services as well as Chinese OTT services. As Patrick has mentioned, soft power is important, and our creativity could not be recognized if it's never delivered. Therefore, delivering strategies should carefully planned out along with the content creation strategy.
Right. And Patrick, we have like a minute left. Perhaps you could fill us in on some of the ongoing screen projects aimed at boosting bilateral cultural exchanges that you're involved in as well, of course.
Yes, of course. I mean, there are many Korean films showing in Hong Kong right now, and then after Decision to Leave, and I'm also working on different film translations, film subtitles translations, for example, like the Emergency Declaration, I mean, which I have done before, and then which is also showing in Hong Kong right now. And then a few days ago, I also did an interview with director Che Dong-hoon, with whose film Alien Lloyd is also opened, that is released in Hong Kong. Yeah, so I think, I mean, what I can see is, for example, like because the Hong Kong box offices and the Chinese box offices are a little bit different. Yeah, so I think in Hong Kong, I mean, the momentum is still going strong, and I can see that more and more Korean films, I mean, if blockbusters and also art house films are going to be released here during the second half of this year.
And what's the response been like, Patrick, from the public now?
I think it is more, for example, like Alien Lloyd. I mean, for Alien Lloyd, I've heard that there are mixed reviews in Korea. But in Hong Kong, I mean, it's quite successful. I mean, because it pays tributes to Hong Kong films back in the 80s and 90s. For example, like director Che Dong-hoon pays tributes to Stephen Chow, Chu Song-chi, the actor, and also Chui Hak, the Hong Kong director, who made a lot of kung fu and sword fighting films, and then he likes it a lot, and so that's why he using these elements in this film. And so when we, as a Hong Kong audience and the viewers, when we go to the cinema and watch it, we feel like, wow, so these are the films that we are growing up with. I mean, we are all familiar with elements. Yeah, so that's why we feel a little bit close to the film.
That is good to know. All right, Patrick, thank you very much for your time and your thoughts. And Professor Kim, thank you so much for your insights today.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
In Europe, Ukraine marks its 6th month of Russian invasion today, and authorities there have shared some tragic numbers to hit home the ongoing painful plight of their people. Our Yoon explains.
It's a war that killed over 12,000 innocent civilians and left some 11 million people with no choice but to leave their homes. And it's a war that is still ongoing. The Russian invasion in Ukraine dates back exactly 6 months ago, when Russian President Vladimir Putin made a televised speech announcing for what he called a special military operation.
The People's Republic of Donbass asked Russia for help. On this day, I have decided to conduct a special military operation that protects people who've been bullied and subjected to genocide by the Kyiv regime for 8 years.
Immediately, Russian forces moved towards the Ukrainian capital Kyiv from all directions. That was their first mission, besieging Kyiv. But with not enough fuel or munitions, Russian troops failed to do so. Instead, their next target became Mariupol, Ukraine's port city linking the Donbas region with the Crimean Peninsula. This is how much territory is believed to now be controlled by Russian troops. The war is still ongoing and mostly focused on the eastern and southern pockets of Ukraine. The latest area of concern is the Russian-occupied Zaporizhia region, where Europe's biggest nuclear power station is at. Both Ukraine and Russia are accusing each other that they're preparing attacks on the plant. Recently, the UN Secretary General urged troops to stop all shelling near the plant, as it would be suicidal. After a Security Council meeting on Tuesday, the UN nuclear watchdog, the International Atomic Energy Agency, said it would visit Zaporizhia nuclear power plant within days once they're given access. But the war seems far from over, even with both sides losing thousands of soldiers. On Tuesday, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky vowed to recapture the peninsula of Crimea, annexed by Russia 8 years ago.
We will take back Crimea. It is our territory. We will do this in any way which we decide.
Russia, meanwhile, is expected to increase attacks. The U.S. State Department said it could launch retaliatory attacks following a car bombing near Moscow on Saturday, which killed Daria Dugina, the daughter of an influential Russian nationalist with close ties to Putin. Moscow immediately blamed Ukraine for that attack, to which Kyiv completely denied. Yoon, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, perhaps a sign of the people's perseverance there, Ukraine's grain exports are looking to reach pre-invasion levels. Our Isingje has more on this promising projection that's also pushing prices down.
Ukraine is one of the world's largest exporters of wheat, corn, barley, and sunflower oil, providing 5 million metric tons of grain each month before the Russian invasion. The February 24th invasion led to a massive spike in food prices, especially in countries that rely heavily on Ukraine's exports. However, according to a senior U.S. State Department official speaking to AFP, Ukraine is on track to export as much as 4 million metric tons of agricultural products in August. The official added that more than 720,000 tons of grain have been moved from the Black Sea ports through 33 ships over the past several weeks. Assisting Ukraine with the logistics, an initiative called Solidarity Lanes, established by the European Union, has helped move the grain by river, rail, and road routes. In fact, the initiative is helping ship roughly 3 million metric tons of grain into the European Union and beyond to international markets each month. The export of Ukrainian grain back to pre-war levels has helped bring down global food prices. The price of urea, a key raw material for fertilizers needed for farming, has also dropped significantly since mid-April, contributing to the fall in food prices. However, experts fear that the price decline could be temporary and that another spike in prices could be on the horizon due to the historic droughts seen throughout Europe. Still, the earlier-than-expected return of grain exports has been a pleasant surprise for many economists who say the worst outcomes, like a massive famine, have been avoided for now. Isingje, Arirang News.
Despite the ongoing warfare, prolonged pandemic and soaring inflation, global trade activity is reportedly holding steady. Now, this is according to the World Trade Organization. Our Kim Hyo-sun has details.
The WTO says that its global trade goods barometer remains steady at 100 as the impact of Russia's invasion of Ukraine is being offset by the relaxation of COVID-19 restrictions in China. The barometer is a leading indicator that signals changes in world trade growth and is updated on a quarterly basis. Readings greater than 100 suggest trade growth, while a reading below 100 means stagnant trade. The latest data is consistent with the organization's most recent trade forecast in April, which predicted 3% growth in the volume of world merchandise trade in 2022. The Geneva-based international body explained Tuesday that global trade growth slowed to 3.2% in the first quarter compared to 5.7% in the quarter before. It also slowed in the second quarter, but did post quarter-on-quarter growth. It stated that while the latest readings remain steady, stagnant growth would continue going forward. The report further added that indices for air freight and electronic components are pointing down, while the raw materials index has recently risen slightly above the baseline value of the index. It also noted that the container shipping index has risen significantly as Chinese ports have eased COVID-19 restrictions. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
In other news, South Korea has been actively seeking to attract foreign startups into the country. Our Shin Se-byuk has more on these efforts.
South Korea is becoming a launchpad for global startups to expand in Asia. With the goal of becoming a global startup hub, since 2016, the Startups Ministry, together with the National IT Industry Promotion Agency, have been supporting selected global startups as part of the K-Startup Grant Challenge.
Here at Pangyo Techno Valley, dubbed the Silicon Valley of Korea, global startups are looking to expand across the Asian market through a global platform offered by the South Korean government.
And it's also here that this year's 54 selected startups from across the world are given various benefits.
From housing support to investment linkages, we work together with local and related agencies to ensure the selected startups settle in South Korea.
From AI to logistics, these companies are from different industries, but what they have in common is that they see opportunities for doing business in South Korea thanks to an environment that's supportive to startups.
Fortunate to get a lot of great advice, learn the ins and outs of operating a business in Korea from legal advisors, accountants, others on the ground here.
One of last year's participants also found the program beneficial as a foreigner and as a new startup.
So those programs are very beneficial for us to get the funding and also get the help. So this is, I think, one of the competitive edge of Korea.
These benefits are attracting more and more startups from across the world. And as of 2021, a total of 309 firms have taken advantage of the accelerator program, and almost 50% of those companies have established a corporation. Besides the KSGC program, Korea is ramping up to further improve the country's startup ecosystem with many state-funded programs such as the SBA loan program available. The government is also seeking to implement tax breaks and improve visa regulations for entrepreneurs from abroad. All of these measures are making South Korea even more attractive as a global startup destination. According to a report from a U.S. research firm Startup Genome, South Korea's capital Seoul ranks 10th among the best places for startups and is only the second Asian city to make the list after China's Beijing. This is an improvement of 6 places from the year before. Despite this rapid growth, however, experts say language barrier issues, as most of the work is done through Korean, can slow the country from becoming a global startup incubator, and that this issue needs to be addressed by hiring workers who are fluent in English if South Korea is to climb up the list further. Shin Se-byuk, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, researchers here are seeking to facilitate the daunting task of cleaning up oil spills at sea. Our Chong Won-ju explains.
Mauritius, an island nation off the coast of East Africa, is famous for its natural beauty. But in 2020, an environmental catastrophe struck when a Japanese cargo ship ran aground and spilled over 1,000 tons of low-sulfur, high-viscosity oil. The International Maritime Organization had mandated that all ships should only use low-sulfur oil starting from 2020. Low-sulfur oil, however, hardens easily when it comes into contact with cold seawater, making it difficult to remove. But a South Korean research team has developed an eco-friendly net that can easily remove sticky oil. It uses a similar method to how some carnivorous plants catch insects. Some carnivorous plants have small fiber hairs on their surface. These fiber hairs become slick when they meet and absorb water by creating a thick, hard layer of fluid and cause insects to slip. The researchers developed an eco-friendly fiber that imitates the plant's fiber hairs to make the special net. The net made with this fiber lets water pass through while trapping the oil. When the net's thin fibers meet water, they form a water layer and let oil separate easily from the surface of the net. This allows the net to be used multiple times without its efficiency wearing off. The research team conducted an experiment with the South Korean Coast Guard and found that it's possible to recover a ton of low-sulfur oil per day with the newly developed net.
We learned that the water layer created by the fibers of carnivorous plants also lets oil drip off easily. This is particularly useful information in the case of high-viscosity oil, and we thought we could apply this principle when removing oil from water.
The research team says the developed technology could also be applied to marine oil removal gloves and work clothes. The same team is conducting follow-up research to develop a machine that could automatically recover oil from the ocean by applying similar technology. 정은주, Arirang News.
On the agricultural front, yet another group of researchers has come up with a way to defy the sweltering summer in efforts to cultivate certain vegetables. Our Yoon reports.
This summer, seeing temperatures of 30 degrees Celsius or higher has been the norm. However, inside greenhouses, it gets even hotter, setting up unfavorable conditions for vegetables to grow. Most crops tend to dry out when exposed to high temperatures above 35 degrees for a long time. In particular, leafy vegetables such as lettuce are difficult to grow in summer when the optimum temperature for cultivation is below 20 degrees.
When the water is warm, the vegetables cannot absorb nutrients, so they're small in size and the yield has been poor. We're losing customers because of this.
However, the lettuce being grown in this facility is growing well even at high temperatures. The secret behind this? Cool water. The smaller water tank is cooled before the large water tank is cooled. By supplying the vegetables with cooler water, they're able to grow much bigger despite the hot temperatures. And it's even more effective with the use of a shading screen, ventilation windows, and ventilation fans inside the facility to further cool the area.
Appropriate use of cooling technology suitable for facilities and crops can significantly help increase yields or increase profits for farmers during periods of high temperatures.
If the cooling technology can be widely used by farmers, worries over high-priced leafy vegetables during the summer season may be a thing of the past. 이은진, Arirang News.
Seoul City is launching a trial of a walking tour along the Hangang River starting from the 1st of September to the 8th. Now, reservations for this trial tour start on this Wednesday. The tour itself will be expanded from September 13th. A professional guide will explain the history and cultural assets along the river. The tour boasts a night promenade for those seeking to indulge in the city's sights after sunset.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. A whistleblower has accused Twitter of lying about bots and security flaws on its platform. According to reports on Tuesday, Twitter ex-head of security Peter Zatko said the company is, quote, grossly negligent in several areas of information security, adding that Twitter prioritized growing its user base instead of handling those concerns. The allegations come as the social media company and Elon Musk are set to meet in court on October 17th over the Tesla CEO's pullout of a $44 billion deal to buy the company. Musk has accused Twitter of not being transparent over the real number of bots on its platform. Zatko is an experienced hacker hired by Twitter in 2020 in a bid to improve security. He was fired in January of this year. Twitter has denied Zatko's accusations. Former Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak began a 12-year prison sentence on Tuesday for his role in the 1MDB scandal. This comes after a top court in Malaysia dismissed the former PM's appeal, making the 69-year-old the first former Malaysian leader to be put behind bars. He was also fined $47 million. Najib was initially convicted in July 2020 after being found guilty of corruption charges related to the One Malaysia Development Berhad embezzlement scandal. According to investigators, around $4.5 billion were grafted from the state-owned firm, which was co-founded by Najib in 2009, with $1 billion found in his financial accounts. Finland's Prime Minister Sanna Marin has been forced to issue a second apology in the space of a week. Speaking on Tuesday, the 36-year-old said a picture of two topless women kissing at a private party held at the PM's official residence in July was not appropriate. Marin also told reporters that the picture should not have been taken. This second apology follows a mix of backlash and support over footage of Marin partying and dancing at another party, after which there were calls for the leader to undertake a drug test. Marin returned a negative test result on Monday. The Democratic Republic of Congo has confirmed a new case of the Ebola virus. A 46-year-old woman from the eastern province of North Kivu tested positive for the virus following her death on August 15th. The virus was confirmed on Tuesday by the World Health Organization and is linked to the outbreak that killed almost 3,500 people in the region between 2018 and 2020. Officials are currently contact tracing 131 people, 60 of whom are frontline healthcare workers. Meanwhile, 200 vaccines are being sent to the region in a bid to prevent the virus from spreading further. Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
Good Wednesday afternoon. This morning, you might have felt a pleasant breeze blowing into your face, and it's a sure sign that autumn is right upon us. Seoul seeing a high of 27 degrees, and that is 3 degrees lower than yesterday. The daytime high in Daegu will also dip down to 24 degrees, and that is below 6 degrees than the average. Well, skies look gray and dull in the capital, but a small amount of rain, around 5 millimeters, is expected in southern regions until later today. While checking today's high temperatures is going to be below 30 degrees across the country, and particularly, it's much cooler in eastern regions, hovering around 25 degrees in Daegu, Gyeongju, and Busan. Well, it's a lovely day to go outside and have fun, but watch out for a high UV index when the sun breaks through. Put on your sunscreen thoroughly and bring your parasol or sunglasses. And sunny spell should continue for the time being, and it will get cooler every day with lows in Seoul falling down to nearly 20 degrees. Now let's take a look at the worldwide weather conditions.
And that brings us to the end of this edition. We'll be back same time tomorrow with more coverage. Join us then. Thank you for now.